And I keep looking over there. Hey, everyone, and welcome to our Saturday Little Quick Tips. And today we are going to be talking about, and I thought I made a banner, but apparently I didn't. So we're going to be talking about hybrid and concurrent as I type it, teaching ideas. Um, and that's because Kristen, who is joining me, Kristen Merrill, it has been teaching for almost the entire year this way, correct?
Yeah.
And some of us are just coming to it, and I've been helping school districts with it. And we've been trying some things that have been working. And I wanted to talk about those, hear from Kristen how it's working with her class, because many people on, I like to just call it the coasts, except you're a coast and you've been doing it for a year. But for us in California, we're going back Monday. Some people are going back in 2 weeks on Monday after their spring break, whatever it is. And it's a little bit scary, but actually, one of the things I'm noticing is it doesn't need to be that scary. But just feels anytime we do something different, it can be unique. So, Kristen, why don't you explain what you teach and what your situation is in your classroom?
Sure. So I teach fourth grade, and the way that my year started out was I had a certain amount of students, I guess you could say, like registered to me or underneath my name as virtual students. And then I had only about 10 students in person when the year started. And as the years progressed, as parents have felt more comfortable sending their kids to school, the kids just drop back in. So the numbers are constantly changing back and forth. And now I would say I probably have 2/3, 3/4 of my kids in person, and I still have some of the kids online. So that's kind of how we progressed.
You're in Florida.
I am in Florida. So we started this at the end of August is when we went in to school, maybe very beginning of September. And we've done this from the very beginning. This is kind of the model that our district took. And then we also do have an online completely virtual school that they now opened that will stay around even after, schools are fully reopened. But this allowed students to attend virtually at their home schools, like the schools that they would normally be at with like the teachers and the staff that they were familiar with.
So it's really a concurrent model, because some of the things I'm noticing is that some administrators are Googling hybrid and the definition that comes up is really concurrent, and then they're calling it hybrid. But concurrent, which let's talk about this, is when you are teaching kids in person and then there's kids on the screen watching and trying to play along, let's call it.
Yes, they're synchronously learning along in real time with the kids. Whereas the hybrid, from what I've understood, since we aren't doing it, is more of like an A, B, C, D kind of a model where you have group A in person, group B's, that concurrently learning, and then you switch them and you have B in person and the other A is currently concurrent learning. Or I've seen other models too where they're asynchronously learning. I've seen all sorts of things.
Yeah, there's all kinds, so I can't say what's what, but the hybrid is supposed to be I'm at school on Tuesday and Thursday, and on Wednesday and Friday, I'm just working on that project at home. I'm not checking, not whatever. Anytime it's groups of kids learning at the same time, that's concurrent. Whether it could be Tuesday and Thursday, and then their day is Wednesday and Friday. That's supposed to be concurrent. With everyone Googling it and not knowing what they're doing, there's many names, and even at your school, there's I think you guys call it blended learning.
Yeah, I don't even know if they know what they're calling it. I almost like the idea of hybrid over like our friend in Indiana. He teaches the way I just said it. He has a group A online in person, and then he has a group B in person, and then the next day he has B online and A in person. So he's almost like concurrent and hybrid together, which that would seem very overwhelming to me. So I think there's all different ways to do it. But at the bottom line, you're going to have kids online, you're going to have kids in person.
Yeah. And like you're experiencing, just because I talked to you, like right now, not that many kids are coming back and they're staying at home in California. But then they'll get more either comfortable and they'll come back, or they'll be like, wait a minute, I'm sitting in a desk all day. Why am I doing this? I could be in my bed. We don't know what they're going to do, in terms of that. So how are you guys handling it?
Yeah, so I would say from the very beginning, whenever you have students online and in person, you have to understand that you might need to slow down a little bit, that sometimes they're just not able to work quite as fast if they're at home or if they're online for all different reasons, whether it's directional, whether it's the programs you're using. So depending on your model, maybe plan a little less than you would normally have planned. In addition, I know I did that. I like, oh, we all know how to use the computers. We're all going in. And it was really overwhelming. It was a little overwhelming for me. It was overwhelming for the students. So keep it really simple and short. There's nothing wrong with having a little bit of extra time. I don't think it just allows you to get to know your students. And then I would say start backwards. So what I've done from the very beginning, especially if you're having kids work on the same things in different ways, or if they're doing it at the same time, is always think about the virtual kids first. Like, how are they going to access something and do it? And then kind of build your lessons backwards, because the kids in person often can use the same tools as the kids online, but the kids online can't always use the same tools as the kids in person. And so that kind of helped me to cover my grounds, so that I wasn't preparing this huge lesson for my kids in class and then saying, shoot, my kids online can't do any of this. And then I was having to create 2 different lessons. So that really helped.
So that's really interesting. And I think that we've been saying this all along, less is more. I don't know how much people are hearing it. We do have supposedly tests coming, so people are a little afraid of that. But one of the things that I started to notice when I was helping teachers rethink this is that, like, I saw the kids not being able to ask questions who were virtual. Like, it were like, hello, 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 and it was a little harder. So I recommended that they do something like a Padlet wall that was just questions. Every kid, whether they're in person or virtual, knows to go to that, and then the teacher can check it every 15 minutes. Or a kid who's in class who knows the answer can put the answer to that kid, instead of it being like, raise your hand.
Yeah, we have chats and stuff in the video, but like you're saying, often the teachers being pulled in different directions. I love the Padlet. There's a backstory one, like a back chat on Padlet. That's one of the templates. So that's the one that we use with the kids. And then you can just leave obviously we have more than one computer running. So you leave one of the computers running. And then if you are already working on something else online, the kids, like you said, in person can check. That's what's really great, is half the time they know the answer before you do, or they can get through, sometimes the kids online can help the other kid online. Like, they can help, but I definitely think that's something that doesn't hurt to have available.
And I have a question for you, because I tried this. I got really good feedback on it, but I'm sure you've done it. I saw people have the kids that were virtual. They went into like a breakout room when it was time to do discussion, and the kids who were in person were together in a group. And I'm like, when it's possible, when they feel comfortable, why don't you blend those? Why don't you have one kid sitting in a computer, and then the 2 in person, and vice versa, 2 in computer and 1 in person, whatever. Blend and connect these kids. Have you done that?
Oh, yeah. I've done that. I did twice in the last 2 days. One activity I put on Nearpod. And for that activity, I actually used Microsoft Teams, and I threw out breakout rooms, and I had one person from in class with one person from Teams. One person online, and they were in the team breakout rooms together. I've done it where some days I wasn't as prepared, and I literally took the computer and was like, "You're their partner today," and like just put the computer on the desk. And that those 2 kids facilitated the conversation online with the kids, and they were then able to speak whenever they wanted, and they didn't have to raise their hand. And it's beautiful, and it's really great because it allows the kids in person too to take some ownership of what they're doing. And it's really funny. Sometimes you'll watch them like model what the teachers done. Like yesterday, I heard one of them say, "So and so, you don't have your camera on, so if you want to type in the chat, you could talk to us that way too." Or they'll say things like, "So and so, I haven't heard from you yet. Do you guys have any ideas? Do you have any ideas you want to share?" Like, they kind of mimic what they see the teachers do, but it's a great way to keep the kids in person kind of on task too. And the kids love it. Like, they fight over who gets to be that person. And it's really great because I always give the kids online a choice. Like the day we did Nearpod, I said, "Do you want to work with a partner, or do you want to work on your own?"
Yeah.
Like, what do you want to do? I think out of all of them, only 2 wanted to work by themselves, which was fine. Then the kids got to have a partner. And then I sat kind of with those 2 and kind of just checked in. And, "Hey, I see you're on slide 7. You wrote this on slide 5. What do you think about that?" And those 2 are my shyer ones. So that gave me the chance to talk to them. And they actually talked to me because there's no one else on our video chat at the time. So there's a lot of different ways you could do it. But I would definitely say steering towards apps and things that are live in real time that the kids can do together is really beneficial.
Right. And I've also seen people who are like, well, these kids, the virtual kids, have to have their camera on. They have to have their own assignments or whatever. And I think it's also okay every once in a while, and I don't know if you're doing this or not, but to be like, okay, it's time to go work. You guys can go work and come back. We'll see you at 1:15 when we start the next activity. Do you ever do that?
Yeah, actually, in the last couple of weeks, I've changed my online kids schedule a little bit. So they're synchronous in the day, meaning they're live all the time, but I've taken a few different time periods in the day. So for instance, like I teach fourth grade. So when my in-person kids are doing their normal like reading centers where we normally would be pulling small groups and things, in our district, we're not really doing that as much. I've then flopped and I've had my virtual kids, we do writing together. So that while those kids are working independent, I can sit with my virtual kids one-on-one and give that one-on-one instruction with them. I've also done things where like they've had activities like that and I can leave my computer out or put my earpods in or run a chat board or something, but they do have that time to kind of be on their own because independent skills are still important and being responsible for those things are still important. You just want to make sure you don't lose their ability to ask the questions or get the feedback that they want on those things. So I definitely don't think they need to be live and speaking with children in person all the time. I don't think they need to be solitary with you all the time. You have to kind of find that balance. And I think it kind of depends too on what you teach. I mean, if you're a middle school teacher and you're teaching one thing in 8 periods, that may look a lot different than if you're like someone like me who has my kids all day.
It doesn't have to, and that's what I want people to feel comfortable with. Just because it's a period, and that's what I would be teaching in grade language arts period. They don't have to be sitting on that screen the whole time. You can do your 15 minutes of getting everyone the directions or whatever, and these kids go and work, and those kids can go off screen and work. But what do you like? So when I was teaching remotely, I would say out of 36 kids, because that's how we do it in California, we have 36 kids in the class, sometimes 39. I would have 3 cameras on. When you go back to this new, do kids turn on their cameras?
It's really hard. Our district has technically a rule that they have to be on. So a lot of times we let our kids have them on and like mirror them up to the ceiling fan or so I have a few that I don't get to see all the time or I see just their eyebrows or their thumb in the window, to me, I have kids that sit in my classroom face to face to me and don't engage and don't say anything and don't participate. Right. So to me, you can have that whether you have a screen on or screen off or you're sitting in person or you're not there. Like that comes from a child and can be handled in different ways. But if you can do lessons in a way where they're structured that allows them to come back, it doesn't always have to be on a screen either. I mean, you can front load some information and learn about something, break out into pairs and discuss it, work on something as a project and come back and add 6 words at the end on a Padlet. If your 6 words aren't there, I know you didn't come back and do it.
Exactly.
And I can tell by your 6 words if you did the parts before it. So I can still assess whether you're actually doing it or not. I don't have to see you do it, but you have to kind of think of that. And if you can structure it in that way, it takes that anxiety off of, because honestly, if you have to watch your kids every single second they're doing something, then there's something wrong right there. Right. There's not that intrinsic desire and it's not built.
You didn't activate their curiosity, so they're interested and want to learn. You left out some critical, and this is what I'm now calling digital pedagogy. You've left out some of that crucial digital pedagogy of having a place, well, first activating their curiosity so they want to learn. Second, having a place where things are so that they feel grounded in, okay, it's either in Teams or Classroom or a HyperDoc or something. So they're not floundering. It's not task-oriented per se. It can be task-oriented, but it's a place where they are. And then allowing them to show and demonstrate their knowledge, which is what you're saying. If those 6 words aren't there, then but it's also understanding the digital pedagogy of I can have them do those things on Padlet and I can have the Padlet up on my screen or on the thing and I can see things coming in and I know whether or not they're working. And that's the same thing if they're in class, maybe their eyes are there, but they're not there. And we have that all the time.
Yeah, like checkpoints. Basically, you develop these like checkpoints or these stopping points. In my classroom, we call them reflection stations. Like we stop and reflect on something or we stop and revise because we're really big on like reflecting and revising and as we work. And so you can have those like, Nearpod's great, Padlet's great, Flipgrid's great. Those things are all live in real time. And so you can see them and all of them can be embedded into other LMSs, which is another great thing. So, my kids they're they're 9, they're 10. So having everything in the one page on Canvas is great. Like they need to stay there, but you can embed a lot of these other interactive and real-time things there. So they're not really there, they're able to do other things with it.
And just because a kid doesn't have their camera on, I've learned, means nothing about engagement. And one thing that I recommended, and it's turned out to be really successful, is the kids who are on the screen they can go into an individual breakout room that has a timer. So they know how long they have to work. Whether or not they get the work done was going to be the same thing in face-to-face. But that timer goes off. So they're in this room. And then after 10 minutes, they come back and we have a quick formative assessment or discussion or whatever. And then they go back into this breakout room that's by themselves, so that they're working quietly, but they have that timer, or using something like class screen for a timer that everyone's watching, whatever it is. But there can still be this time when you're working and you don't have to be sitting on the screen. And I saw this superintendent assistant superintendent do this like video of what it could look like, and all the kids were on the screen, and then all the kids in class were like discussing. It's not going to look like that.
No, not all the kids work at the same pace either. Like you have kids in class, like it's the same, like you're saying, it's the same pedagogy of developing based on the needs of your kids, like how you structure things, the time you give them, the materials you do it, the way you build a lesson to scaffold for those kids that may not have that background knowledge, or advance it for the kids who already know it. You're still doing that even though they're online. And like you said, I think we have to get away from that idea of like, I'm going to sit here and talk to you for this entire lesson. Like no one wants that. The kids in the class don't want it. Even if they're in person, they don't want to listen to you that long. And so really that demonstration of knowledge is key.
Okay, exactly. Demonstration of knowledge, activating their curiosity. And the demonstration of knowledge is when they're creating a product that shows you that they understood something, or tell you on Flipgrid. But it's also about understanding that it's not between the two populations of remote and whatever. It's just still, we have some content we need to cover. I'm going to do it through discussions. I'm going to do it through whatever, and finding the right digital tool that does that best. And if you don't understand digital tools, and I think most of the like California teachers at this point have had to learn the tools, but if you don't understand, and then you're going to be in a bad way. And that's why I like to always like say, like, if you understand Flipgrid, if you understand Padlet, if you understand a book creator, a Canva, an Adobe Spark, you're good. You're good. That's all you need.
Yeah, really. I mean, a key to letting the kids demonstrate their knowledge or really work independently at all, as long as you have that monitoring aspect in, whatever the platform is. I know it's old school and I know it's not fancy. I use ClassKick all the time. And the number one reason I love it is because I can drop in and I can see what every kid's doing. So yeah, let them go work for 30 minutes. It doesn't mean you're going to let them work for 30 minutes and then you're not going to do anything. And then, come back and they didn't do anything. While they're working, drop into their slides, see what they're working on. Just like the kid in person that you'd walk over to their desk and be like, hey, come on, it's been 10 minutes. Why aren't you working? Wait 10 minutes and drop in their slide and say, hey, Katie, do you need help? I don't even see, it even tells you like if they're in the slide, you're not even in the slide. Can I help you with something? Because once I know that you're able to see and monitor, that helps guide them along, just like the kids in class who may be off task. I mean, it's got to be hard sometimes to be at home. I've got some kids that's loud and noisy and there's people everywhere, and that's why they stay on mute. They're not on mute because they don't want to talk. They're on mute because they don't want you to hear the nonsense that's going on, And so just to be there and guide through there and help them like that, anything that helps you monitor, that you can go in and see. I mean, Google Slides, and you can go in and see what they're doing in real time. Just monitor it.
Jamboard, I use stickies to leave notes, just like you're saying. Like a kid will be working. We were working on something that was around Adolf Hitler, and they were totally off. I asked, how did he come to power? And they were like, he was born in 1837, or it wasn't 1837, but, and I was like, does that have anything with the sticky note? Does that have anything to do with his rise to power? And I could go in and do that. And that's why we use whiteboards and Jamboard, whatever, for this, because you can see what your students are doing, and ClassKick is great for it.
Yeah, they can't erase what you write either. So I can go in and add notes and leave things. It stays there. They can't delete it until I can see that they've made those changes. And like you said, coming back and then having that discussion. sometimes I tend to use Teams when I do breakout rooms just because it's easier for us, but I'll go in and I'll just listen. And I'll just listen to the things they're talking about, jot a couple notes, and then we come back, sometimes address those big misconceptions and not necessarily point out anyone, but then sometimes you realize that the kids had more than one kid had that misconception.
Yeah.
And then they can see that and go back and fix it. So there's a lot of different ways to kind of to hint at that monitoring piece or that revising of the knowledge. But if it is a task that truly demonstrates learning, you will know whether they know the content or not by the end of it.
Yeah.
It turns into a way to assess.
Yeah, and if you are going to ask multiple choice questions, you're not going to get rich information about their learning, and you're not going to know. And it's going to be this ending cycle where you're like, well, they're not passing the thing. Well, of course they're not, because you weren't checking on them along the way to make sure they were getting their work done. And so, so it's really like, to me, when I look at it, when I give people advice on it, it's not that hard in terms of just simple. Just make sure you're using digital tools that allow you to see work that's getting done along the way. Do formative assessments. Check at the end of the day, like if I'm teaching an 8th grade language arts class, I'm going to check in every day and go, what worked here when we did this? What didn't work? Let the kids lead you to a more successful program. You've got to have that kind of like bookend. And one really bad thing I saw in this assistant superintendent video, I'm probably going to get myself in trouble. But so he had the kids on the screen, and then he had the kids in the classroom, and they were working on some like fake task, okay, which I get. It was just for demonstration purposes. But then he's like, okay, share out. And the kids online would share out what they did, and the kids in person did. And that's a really 1985 way of doing something. Like where they should have shared out first is on a Padlet. So the kids could have seen each other's responses or what they were working on. They could have commented in on it. So when they came back to share out, and a couple groups did or whatever, there'd be more background knowledge about what's happening. And so those are the kinds of things that we need to remember, is that share out first on some digital platform like Jamboard or whatever it is. And then the kids can see it first. And for those kids who didn't explain it well or don't share, we still have the interaction with that information. And I just saw, what I saw him doing was putting 1985 teaching on Meets, Meet and in person. And that's not going to work.
Well, I found something
using digital tools, but go ahead.
Really cool about Padlet too, when you're talking about revising knowledge, is what I like about Padlet as the teacher, I can go into the Padlet and I can change and edit anything. The kids can only change and edit theirs. But I also found out this week that I can rank things. So I can drag their responses, especially when you're using the columns. So a lot of times, like if I like things, like it's almost like pin it. I'll either highlight it because I can highlight their answers, or I can drag them to the top. So when the kids start seeing it, the things that I kind of liked first are kind of coming up front. They don't really know that. But there's some really cool features when you play around with it. And I think too, as teachers working digitally, if you try to teach in that 1985 way and do all those things digitally, you're not going to have enough minutes in the day. And I think that's where a lot of these teachers who are saying that they're so overworked and they're so overwhelmed, you need to cut some of the things. Like you don't need to necessarily, like the time it might take some of these teachers to find the article and house it and then create all the multiple choice questions and do this assessment. And the hours it takes building might be better spent giving them a smaller task and spend a fraction of those hours just reviewing their work. Like this week we worked on the Reconstruction period in the Civil War, and I gave them a very short article and a video. And I said, okay, you know what? On your own or with a partner, watch over this. And I think I said, tell me the main parts of this time period of the Civil War to make. And they did a video. They did like paper slides, and they drew, and the kids online could pull. I could tell you very easily after that first day what kids understood, what key points, what kids left things out. And so it took me 30 seconds to watch the video and jot a few notes like, hey, that was great, but you forgot all the amendments. What about the economy? What about whatever? So then the next day they came in and they drew, and they understand the parts of the Reconstruction now. And I know that they know that so much better than when I give a multiple choice test. How do I know they didn't Google it? How do I know they didn't just, what I mean? Like, and on top of that, they got to draw, they got to design, they got to order. There's filmmaking. There's so many other little things that were, discuss, like we had great conversations about the chronological order of things. And does that matter when you're talking about this time? Well, it does. It's a time period. I teach English. I don't even teach, so there were so many other skills that really worked and were intertwined that when you branch off and start doing this, it's scary at first because it's so different. But then you start doing it, and you're like, wow, I hit on so many other things too that like I didn't mean to. And it becomes really fun.
And I see a lot of teachers that I'm working with going to Teachers Pay Teachers, getting a packet and thinking the kids here will do this packet and the kids at home will do the packet and they'll be working together. No, this
No.
is where we have the beauty of these digital tools so that it can be really layered and we can have a lot of information about students. I have seen a teacher do something beautifully though. If you call them the roomers and the zoomers or the meters and the seaters, and I don't know if there's a team term for that, but the roomers and the zoomers, I hate to use this term, but kind of pitted them against each other in a Kahoot. So after they got done with the learning, they had to go it was team based. And so the Zoomers wanted to win and they were really trying to get all the information beforehand. And I thought that was ingenious because that's what I did in person as a teacher. I always put kids in group and they got points in their group for doing certain things. And she really took that and applied it to this virtual situation.
Another great way to introduce a lesson comes from Matt Miller, and we used to do it all the time in person, but you could totally do it with the kids together, is doing blind Kahoots. So you feed off that competitive nature, and you ask a whole bunch of questions that the kids have absolutely no idea what they are. And they get really irritated and frustrated because they're not getting the points or whatever. And then you give them a time to research and learn and whatever. And then you ask the same exact questions again. And because of that need to win, they have that intrinsic motivation. It's just another fun way too to kind of introduce something. Or the way I do it is I ask the question and then I do like a quick 30-second, minute long kind of little lecture about what it was. And as I'm introducing this concept, and then I ask the same question again. So they want to listen to me in those 2 minutes because I'm going to ask that same question in a different way. And it's a great way if you do need to like lecture or front load some information, you can do it in a way that's a little bit more fun and engaging. And it's not just like, okay, guys, let's read this 5-page article.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. I haven't done that. It's not.
Oh, it's so much fun. I do it a lot for vocabulary. It really helps. Like it's a great, easy way.
Are you using Kahoot or Gimkit?
I use Gimkit more.
Mm-hmm.
Gimkit, I find though, I need a lot of questions to really make Gimkit fun, and because the whole aspect is to earn money and to do those kinds of things. I do have a lot of Kahoots. If I do a blind, I'll usually do a Kahoot because then I can time it and we all work at the same pace. And if I'm needed to kind of give that background or that discussion, especially in a blind Kahoot, I'll use it. A lot of people are also using Blicket, but I haven't added a new one yet because quite honest, like you can only add so many, and it's great that some work for others. But when you have something already created, if you've been lucky enough to stay kind of in that same realm long enough, use it. Like spend your time developing the lessons and the things our kids are gonna, be doing themselves.
And I would think a Kahoot, I haven't really been all about Kahoots very much, but in this situation, I think it kind of brings the class together. I think it's a fun way to get like energy changed and wake up that kid who, I mean, honestly, there are definitely kids on the remote situation who are really playing a video game and just listening to what you're saying. I understand, but this is a way to get them like have to get back in. And I'm hoping none of the students are, but when I look at 200 kids, the chances that someone is huge. Because that's how many kids are in an 8th grade English class over time.
Ooh.
Yeah. So I think also, and we need to stop because we're at a half hour and we should have been at 15 minutes, but I think it's also really important, and I'm sure you agree, to do more formative assessments in this way, in this environment. And that means just going to Flipgrid and saying, what's everything that you learned today? Do a brain dump, or having things that are where kids can talk about their learning, especially if they're the Zoomers, because they're not getting to talk in the same way. So I would think that Flipgrid would even rise. It's already at the top for me, but now it's just rising and rising.
Yeah, I love it. I love attaching. I've started attaching documents to Flipgrid as images and things like that, letting the kids pull them up, read them, mark them, talk about them there, so I can still see what they're talking about. But the time it takes, especially my kids are younger, to type everything, sometimes just tell me. Tell me what you're thinking. Answer my question. Here's your points that you need to talk about. It's nice.
And there's also cognitive research that when you say it, it sticks a little bit better than writing it. And so there's a lot going on there. But anyway, so as people start uh, this hybrid situation in California and some other states, what we're saying is slow down, keep it simple, make very powerful use of some of your digital tools. The two that I really would think, three that I would go for right now would be Flipgrid, Padlet, and I'd probably bring in some Kahoot where I hadn't been. Um, and I would be okay with letting the Zoomers be there for 15 minutes and go off and do their work. You're going to know if it's done or not. You're going to know if they understand it. Let them go and create and spend some one-to-one time with those kids who are in your classroom. Don't use your one-to-one day for tests. Don't do that. And you need to rethink tests. We need to be rethinking tests anyway. Anything else that you can think of? Oh, blending groups and sharing work.
Yeah, like I said, I value discussion, creation, reflection a lot more than I value completion or even assessments. I can assess my kids on anything. I can assess you as you walk in my door for the day or as you come in. Like, assessment is just a way to understand if kids are progressing through the content that we need them to. And I think so often assessment is always like an ending point for something, or, and people don't realize that you technically are assessing your kids anytime you're around them. That's what teachers do. As you're talking and you're like, wait a minute, that was a misconception. You're assessing their knowledge and you're coming back around to reteach it. So assessment is really happening all the time. Anytime your kids are doing or making or talking, you're processing it and evaluating it and letting it share where you're going. Assessment's always happening. It's just that as teachers, we don't always have a way to capture it. And so capturing it can be on a test, capturing it can be on a video, capturing it can be on a written response, capturing it can be on something they create in Adobe. Capturing their knowledge is an assessment.
Uh-huh.
And so when we can open our eyes that it doesn't have to be a 20-question quiz, whether right or wrong.
Our package we've completed, like I loved when you said it doesn't have to be about completion. It's not about completion. You learn by failing, first of all. You learn by struggling. We don't learn by completing.
We learn by creating, right?
Mm-hmm. So that completion part should be a mind, like, I hope people heard you say that. Because there's a lot of people who think kids need to complete tasks on slides, and that's not learning. That's completing. Anyway, okay, we got to go. We're way over. I even have a call at 9:30 that I'm late to. But anyway, thank you so much. I hope it will help some teachers as they go into this. Don't be afraid. It's not that, it's intellectually stimulating finding these ways.
You know what? You always grow when you try something new, and fear is always at the beginning of something because it's unknown and you're going to mess it up and you're going to redo it 100 million times, but it doesn't mean that what you did the day before is bad. And so just go into it knowing you're not going to get it right. You're going to mess it up and just change it every day as you go.
And I always say, like, you know how many books I didn't read in high school that I was supposed to, and I did the Cliff Notes? You know how many times I might not have been as honest as I could be about some of my homework? And so I probably didn't learn it. I went to Ivy League schools. I still got into this like thing that's supposed to be the big whatever. Kids will be okay, is what I'm trying to say. If they don't learn this much of something, they're still going to get by in life.
They can Google half of it.
Oh.
Like we were working on it today, we're working on the Civil War. They're like, when was Abraham Lincoln born? Siri, when was Abraham Lincoln born? There you go. Let's move on. Like that fact was not what we needed to take out of what we were learning.
Yeah. Anyway, okay. Thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome.
And I'm going to turn off. We have some people who've commented, sadly. Hold on. In our TikTok. I'm going to look at that in a second. We're going to stop this one and we'll look at that really quickly. See if it's something. Okay. So bye, everyone.